Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. My guest today is Kurt Grady. He is Senior Director and Head of Medical Science Liaisons at Reneo Pharmaceuticals. And we talk about his interview style and approach, what he calls the inside out interview, which is really awesome. I think you guys are going to love this. It's an interesting perspective, not one that we've had on this show before. Don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn and check out the announcements because we do MSL Talk live once a month. And that is on LinkedIn. So check out those announcements and listings. And thank you guys for all of your support. Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravela, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. Hey, Kurt, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me.
Well, thanks for having me, Tom. I appreciate being here.
Yeah, man, I am excited. So, guys, I've known Kurt for a while and ran into him at a conference in San Diego. We're having a conversation, and we started talking about interviewing. And Kurt has a really unique interview style and approach, and I really couldn't wait to share it with you guys because I think that this is something that is going to be helpful for both hiring managers and job seekers. And it's very timely because there's a lot of people right now that are on the job market. So this is actually following kind of a monthly theme that we have going on that's geared towards job seekers, but it also is really good for hiring managers. So before we get into that, Kurt, why don't you do a quick introduction and tell everybody who you are and where you're from and all that good stuff?
Well, thanks very much. Again, my name's Kurt Grady. I'm a pharmacist by training, and I've had a 3.5 decade career so far, and worked in a lot of different types of pharmacy. I've been in clinical practice. I've worked in the pharmaceutical industry. In fact, about 2/3 of my career has been in the pharmaceutical industry. I've been an MSL, Health Outcomes Liaison, regional leader, national leader. And right now I'm with a small company that I'm responsible for not only field medical, but also medical communications and medical operations. So busy times.
Awesome, man. Well, we're excited to hear from you. But before we get started, we do have a sponsor. This episode is sponsored by MSL Mastery, which is a program that Sarah Snyder and I have started. It's a coaching program for MSLs. It's actually a whole community for MSLs. But anyway, there's something called Aspire MSL, which is a step-by-step guide for helping folks land their first MSL position. So if you're interested in breaking into industry, check out www.mslmastery.com and specifically look at the Aspire MSL program and see if it's something that might help you out. We are running a Black Friday special. So at the time that this comes out, I think you might want to check out between now and the end of the Thanksgiving season so that you could take advantage of that special. So, Kurt, let's jump right into it. Let's talk about your interview style because I really want to hear about this. So if you could just maybe start by just describing your philosophy and how you came up with this and just start with what it is.
Sure. Well, I mean, interviews are a two-way street. I mean, at least they should be. Unfortunately, what happens is too many companies set up a structure where it's all about determining if the candidate is a good fit for the company. And that makes a lot of sense. Candidates go through a number of different interviews, all kinds of different people. You talk about your background, your experience, your skills. And then the last 3 minutes as a candidate, you get a chance to ask some questions. What's left out is whether the company is actually a good fit for the candidate. So it's kind of the opposite is true. So it should be sort of a two-way street. You know, candidates generally meet with human resources and they hear about salary range and benefits and long-term incentives and things like this. And that's typical and that's expected. But it's really not designed to communicate all the things that candidates want to know. So it makes it really tough for a candidate to learn about the culture, the processes, and the people. Every group has its own personality. And figuring out whether you're going to gel with that personality is really, really imperative. So I make sure that the candidates get two-way information. not only do they get all the sort of traditional kinds of things that we all think about, but they also have an opportunity to find out whether or not they feel like they're going to gel with the organization and the people in the organization, the philosophies in the organization, the processes, and et cetera.
So let me unpack that. So your approach is, and the reason it's different, because this is very unique. Normally, companies will interview candidates to see if they're a fit for the job, the specific position, and the company culture. What you're saying is you also make sure that the job seeker has an opportunity to assess whether or not the company is really, truly a fit for them and what they want. So how do you go about that?
Well, I mean, those two things are equally important. So if you start off putting yourself in the shoes of the candidate, and goodness knows I've certainly been in those shoes many, many times in my career, it can kind of be uncomfortable getting answers to some of the questions for the things that really, really matter. Now, sure, money and benefits are important, but getting a sense of the people, your peers, the processes within this particular organization, all those nuances, the working environment, the thing that we call culture. Those things are really they can really make your role very professionally satisfying, or they can make your days absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
So being miserable is not worth that extra 10 grand. So it's really, really important for candidates to sort of find these other things out. And sometimes as interviewers, or certainly as I've progressed throughout my career, I've done things the other way, and it sometimes it just doesn't really work out very well. So it seems everybody's got a mission statement, and mission statements are a great place to start, but quite frankly, those are only words on a poster in the break room.
Mm-hmm.
So you know how they get lived out by your team, by your supervisor, by your cross-functional colleagues. And so after my leaders review resumes, and we get a pool of candidates, I meet with them individually. Before the whole sort of process gets started, I meet with them individually, tell them, don't wear a tie, guys. This is very casual. And I meet with them, and it generally takes about an hour. And the goal is not to do all the sort of typical things that you do in an interview. The goal, I really want them to listen and to ask questions if they have any. Having questions is not a prerequisite, but it helps.
Sure.
It's how are you going to know if you don't ask? So I'll tell them about the company. I'll tell them about our team, how we got started, what we're about. As the leader, I'll share kind of my philosophy and how that weaves its way into what it is that we do. I want people to know what they're getting into and how that might be different than where they've been before. So I'll talk about our field team. I'll talk about our leadership team individually, as well as other team members, and actually how the team is very purposefully built. That's really important to me. It's purposefully built. Plus, there's a host of other people that support the field team, and it's great to know about them too. So who they are, what's their background, what's their experience, what kind of people are they, what are they like? It's all these little nuances in the organization that they're so critically important. We talk about compliance, we talk about cross-functionality. We talk about in-person versus video meetings and two-way expectations, not just one way. What do I expect of you? But what's important to you? What do you expect from me and from the rest of our leadership team? We talk about training. We talk about measuring success. Whatever comes to mind, because this is not a scripted conversation. It's from the heart, and I think people deserve that.
Yeah.
I really do. So when it's all over and we've had this conversation, I ask people to leave the call and really think about what they've heard. Are these the kind of people and processes and culture where they can succeed? is this the type of environment that they want to work in? And I asked them to send me an email in a day or two. Really think about it. And if this is something that you think is a good fit for you, then that's great. And then we'll go ahead and start the sort of formal interview process.
So that right there in and of itself is very unique in that you're almost just taking a breath and saying, I'm going to give you all this information, and we're going to have this discovery session where I'm going to share a lot with you. I'm going to learn, I want to learn about you, but I also want to share information about the company to give them an opportunity to say yay or nay before going through the rest of the process, as if to say, hey, look, put it all out there. Want to make sure you know what you're signing on for and make sure you're genuinely interested, and then we can move forward or not. So how often does that happen? Often?
What, do people say no?
Yeah.
It does happen occasionally. And if it does, then that's actually great.
Yeah.
It really is, because they can bow out gracefully.
Yeah.
If what we're doing is not a good fit for them in this particular point in their career, that's good for us to know, and that's good for them to know.
Yeah.
It saves everybody a lot of time. There's no penalty either. I mean, heck, the way our industry works, we could be having this conversation a year from now in a completely different environment, and it may work for both. So it could be a great fit there, but maybe it's just not here. So, we might be in this particular company for what somebody's looking for. Maybe we're a little too commercially focused, or maybe we're a little too R&D focused for their particular liking. In small companies, you generally have a much greater scope of responsibility than you do with larger companies, and that could be for some people, but that might not be a good fit for others either way.
Yeah.
The territory could be too large. The position may not have that one thing that somebody's looking for, to catapult them to the next level in their career. So maybe there's too much autonomy. Maybe there's not enough autonomy. So whatever the reason, knowing in advance is really priceless. And this really gives people a chance to really gracefully, bow out without it being awkward or complicated.
Yeah. And you mentioned, I know you had mentioned the importance of sharing the vision with candidates. So could you talk about it a little bit and why that's so important?
Well, I guess from a vision perspective, the way that I think about that is people want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. Moreover, they want to know who they are and what they do fits into something bigger. So not everybody wants to be the headliner, and that's perfectly fine. However, everybody needs to know what they do, and how they do it matters to the company. It matters to their peers, to their department. As I said, it matters to the company. It matters to the HCPs that they're calling on. And then equally important to all of those is it matters to the patients who have the conditions that we're representing. And that knowing that that's the vision that guides people when they have to make a tough decision in the field on the spur of the moment, and they can't pick up the phone and call their, whoever's leading their group or whatever. It's that vision that gives them context and the ability to make that tough call, without having to, artificially sort of stop and et cetera. And it also helps develop people. And we tend to focus not just on developing people for the next role, but developing people for the role after that. And that's probably a whole nother podcast. But that's why that vision is important, is to really give people a sense and a vision and a pulse of the department, the leaders, et cetera, so that they can go out and do what they do effectively and do it quickly.
And I think that sharing all that information and providing all of this up front I think it's a great way. It's a retention strategy, I would think, because you're making sure that you are getting truly interested candidates because they've had a chance to already say no if they didn't think it was going to be a fit. But now they're also learning more about the vision and what the future might look like for them, which gives them more insight. And then it's like all the cards are on the table. And then from there, they come into the situation knowing what to expect, both from the onset and what the vision might be in the future. And it goes back to, and you've given the candidate a voice.
Right.
And you've given them a look at the big picture. So do you feel like this is kind of a retention strategy?
Well, it is in a way. These are the folks that, a few weeks from now, they're the successful candidate. They're going to go through training and they're going to have that first day in the field.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't know this stuff up front, then they don't know the expectations. Then they exit that training very tentatively. It's like I'm going to have to sort of tiptoe around and kind of figure some things out here before I can really get rolling. And that takes whatever period of time that it takes, and it's a colossal waste of time.
Mm.
I want people to exit the training with excitement, with enthusiasm, with confidence, and get rolling. Day one, get out there and get rolling. And this is a way of equipping them to be able to do that, where they don't have to wonder.
Yeah.
Can I, should I, well, coulda, shoulda, woulda. No, they can get out there and get rolling. And that, from very early in the process, they're invested and they're on board and they're out there, they're rolling from day one. There's no sort of tentativeness or none of this. Oh, wow, this is not what I expected.
Yeah.
So expectations and all of that is key.
Yeah. And getting back to your philosophy in this process, in case there are others that are out there that may want to adopt this sort of thing, can you talk a little bit more about like how this process goes from there? Like, how many people are involved? Who should the MSLs meet with? Like, what makes up this whole interview process?
Yeah. So in our particular organization, and this has differed, different places that I've been, but in our particular organization, an MSL coming in to interview, of course, they'll have this, first bit of time with me. It's not really part of the interview. But if they do decide that, okay, this is my jam, I'm liking this, then we start the formal interview process, and they'll begin with whoever that hiring leader is. One of my folks in the field that leads a team. So they'll start with them. They'll then interview with maybe a couple of more leaders within our medical affairs organization, and the reason for that is because we're a small company, we're very cross-functional.
Mm.
Our MSLs are doing a number of things other than MSLing. And so they may meet with the head of MedComs or the head of operations or the head of HEOR, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Typically, we'll have them interview with a member of our either our commercial team or our market access team, kind of depending on which of those groups they're going to be supporting. I think that's very important. And then I have them interview with somebody who's in the job. And I call that the reality checker, because we don't script that. And, we don't actually have our MSLs interview. That's a conversation. Okay, listen, is this stuff that this guy is telling me, is it for real? What's it like in the field? What's it like working with your peers and your colleagues and so on and so forth? It's the reality checker. And I think that's critically important, because they get a chance to talk with somebody who's in the trench, somebody that they're going to be, back to back with, so to speak. And then, of course, there's always somebody from the human resources team that's a part of the process, to go through all of those things that we mentioned before. And then, quite honestly, it's up to the candidate. Do you want to meet with somebody from patient advocacy? Absolutely happy to get that set up. Do you want to meet with somebody from the clinical development team? Sure, absolutely happy. I'll get that set up for you, or somebody will. You want to meet with somebody from marketing? Great, fine. You want to meet with the VP of Medical Affairs and Clinical Development, absolutely happy to want to meet with the Chief Medical Officer. Great. We're a small enough company that, if you want to talk to people, up and down the chain and across, sort of the cross-functional environment, happy to do that. So it's again, that's part of being, candidate focused. We want there to be transparency so people know what they're getting into.
And it's interesting because your process is really no different from any other process as far as the number of interviews, the types of people that are going to be interviewing. What's different is giving the candidate more inside information, more of a voice. So, for example, having them being able to speak to somebody else that's in the role gives them a chance to really see, okay, what is a day in the life like at this organization? Whether you're an experienced MSL or aspiring MSL, whatever it might be, you're going to get a chance to see what is it like to work in that organization, and is it for me? Do I get a chance? Because you know what? Guys, like real talk here. Like you can decide at any point in time as a job seeker, you can decide at any point in time that the company might not be for you. As a matter of fact, I think what Kurt is saying and what I'm saying is if you determine at any point in time that the company or the job or whatever it is just isn't the right fit for you, it's probably better that you speak up sooner than later, because you don't want to make a mistake and take a position that you ultimately aren't going to stay in, number one. And number two, let the best person for the job that really wants it get the job, and you go get the job that's best for you. I think it's brilliant. I do think that this is a really brilliant way to go. So is there anything else that you want to tell hiring managers about, or advice that you have for hiring managers that may be interested in adopting this type of philosophy?
Well, if we're competing for the same great MSLs, my advice to those hiring managers is don't do any of this.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just don't
do what you're doing.
Let us have it. No, but seriously, if you really want to get and recruit the best people,
yeah,
be as interested in the candidate being a great fit at your company as you are the company being a great fit for the candidate.
Yeah,
they're equally important, because if you achieve both, then success is going to follow.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
Yeah, and I mean, it really it is simple, but it makes a lot of sense. So then let's flip it to what advice, knowing your process and everything that we talked about, what's your advice for the job seekers, people that are interviewing right now? Yeah. What can you tell them as they go into knowing that this is your philosophy, as they're going into the interview, their next interview? What advice would you give them and how they should handle it?
Yeah, I mean, I think the key is to be persistent, be patient, ask questions. That 3 minutes that they give you, if you've still got questions after that 3 minutes, then you need to get those questions answered in form. It's kind of like, remember that if you accept a position and you don't have all of your questions answered, you have just taken a huge risk as a candidate. And that's particularly true if you've been through a RIF and you don't have a job right now. People tend to sort of take whatever they can get, and everybody's financial situation is different, and I get that. But jumping in without everything that you need to know, like I say, it's a huge risk, and it might put you in the market looking for a job sooner than you want to be. And that has sort of downstream, implications. You have to explain why you only stayed a year or only stayed 6 months or something like that. And that's just something that you don't necessarily want. So ask questions, be patient, get all your questions answered. Even if, you get a sense that, this is, I'm irritating these folks by asking all of these questions. If you're irritating them by asking questions about the company and about the department and about the people and et cetera, that might not be a good fit. So be persistent, be patient, ask questions.
Yeah. Awesome advice. I think that's just really great advice for any job seeker. If you're not asking questions, it just comes off as lack of interest. It looks like you're just not a very detailed person. And, I mean, even if if it's a very thorough process, there's got to be questions that you're going to ask of the hiring manager or whoever it is that you're talking to that's going to show that you're engaged. You want to show that you're engaged at the very least and interested, and that you really have a genuine curiosity. Because if you don't, then it's going to be like, wow, we couldn't get a read from that person. We weren't really sure why they were here, that kind of thing. So, Kurt, looking at your philosophy and everything that we talked about, I'm just curious, because I think this might be helpful both for job seekers and for hiring managers. Tell us about your interview style and how that might play into this process, or if it plays into the process.
Well, I mean, everybody does things a little bit differently. I mean, I tend to be pretty laid back, pretty casual, pretty conversational. It's, just sort of like this. I lean into the people part of the process rather than the process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important, because if we have the process wrong, we can change it.
Right.
If you get the people part of it wrong, that's much more of a problem. So making the investment up front into the people part of it, I just think that helps you avoid a whole lot of problems. It's much more genuine, and it's much more upfront with people. And I want people to see me, as the leader. I want people to see me as genuine and approachable and willing to listen and willing to coach.
Right.
It's not fun to receive, but willing to cheerlead, willing to challenge. I really like to do that with, my leadership team in particular. They'll come and they want to do this or that, and so I start asking questions. I really, challenge them to make sure that they've thought things through really from front to back, and what those implications are, thought about it from a strategic perspective. And then sometimes I want them to know that sometimes they have to be rescued. And that with all of those other things that come along, I'm just as willing to do that as well. Come pick people up out of the dirt, so to speak, brush them off, talk to them about what they learned, and then just say, now go. Just go. So, knowing that there's somebody there to rescue you, to pick you up, dust you off, and get you moving forward. That's just a tremendous confidence boost for somebody, particularly if you're a little earlier in your career.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome advice, Kurt. You're the man. This was really, really good. Exactly what I expected, because you're awesome. And this approach, I think, is going to help a lot of people. So thank you for coming on. And guys, if you know someone that's interviewing right now, someone that's on the job market, share this with them, because there's so many people out there that need help right now. I mean, I'm hearing from them on a daily basis, and so is my team. So I really think that this would be important to share this episode with them so that they can get a lot of value and hear from Kurt and this great perspective that he has, because I think that it's really, really beneficial to you as the job seeker, but it's beneficial to the company too. You don't want to make and I'm going to say a bad hire, but an inappropriate hire, or worry about hiring somebody that might not actually really be the best fit for the position. So, Kurt, thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your family.
Thank you. Same to you. Appreciate you having me.
Thanks so much. And you guys all enjoy your holiday season and have a great Thanksgiving. We'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening to the show. And if you enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss an episode in the future. And feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and we look forward to seeing you soon.